Welcome to Wrasslin Raw! All right, you're listening to Wrasslin Raw, the podcast that takes you back to when Raw became war and Attitude ruled. Thank you for joining us. You're here with Ryan Arico. Ladies and gentlemen, his dudeness. Joe Giammatteo.
You're looking at the personification of freedom of expression.
So pure. I am the one and only Jason Bartlett, and we're going to examine WWE history, one episode of Raw is War at a time. But first, we had some mail come in, gentlemen. Our man on the scene. Mail call, that's right. Our man on the scene over there in England, keeping an eye on things for us. Lord Thomas, the Viscount of Grimsby, checking in via email. I thought you might be interested to hear what he had to say. I'll read it here. I remember when the WWE Network first got launched, and I started watching old Raws, I got really bored of the theme tune of DOA. It's awful, they're awful, and I wish I could go back to a time when I never heard or saw them. Fuck me, just shit.
I couldn't have stated it any better, Lord Thomas.
My lord.
He speaks the truth.
He does.
I guess he's not a fan of DOA?
The subject line of the email was Disciples of the Honey Dipper, so I take it he is not.
All right.
He's in good company.
Yeah. Lord Thomas, I urge you to keep writing letters to us, but also you might want to fire one off to the WWF and let them know your opinions. That's been working pretty well for us so far, so. With that being said, we do appreciate getting those emails from our listeners. So wrastlinraw@gmail.com. If anybody wants to sound off to us, we are frequently checking the mailbag, and I'll go over that email address one more time at the end. But first, in this episode of Wrasslin Raw, we're going to be talking about the Raw that aired on August 11th, 1997. This Raw was recorded at the Gulf Coast Coliseum in Biloxi, Mississippi, and features Vince McMahon, Jim Ross, and Jerry the King Lawler on commentary. Are you guys ready?
I'm ready.
Ready.
All right, then. Let's get into it. At the start here, I really liked how the voiceover intro called Bret Hart's 5th championship unprecedented.
Erasing the Hulkster.
Hulk Hogan never happened. That video package reviewed the events of last week. Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, Commissioner Slaughter, all that good stuff. Shawn is still angry, I guess, because he chases a cameraman away whenever they went to get a word from him going into the show proper. And Shawn Michaels is what's going to lead the show off tonight, coming down to the ring in his pleated shorts and loafers. The shirt stayed on, though, because it was JR waiting to interview him and not Vince.
Plus, he didn't want to, wrinkle up that fancy polo he had on there.
It wasn't easy snap-off.
Right. Might have stretched the neck out getting it off.
Unlike the Northeast, it seemed like Biloxi was loving Shawn Michaels. There wasn't really a whole lot of booing, or one or two at the start here. A little more.
Yeah, quite a few ladies screaming.
Yeah. JR teed it up for Shawn. He's going to be meeting Mankind in the ring later on tonight. But Shawn didn't want to talk about that. He wanted to bitch some more about his treatment after SummerSlam. Shawn was griping heavily about Vince McMahon and the way Vince has been running things, giving him the side eye. It's at times looking directly at him and clearly insinuating him. That's when a Shawn is gay chant got going. Shawn replied with, "Ask your sister and your mama how gay Shawn is," and I popped. I mean, I'm not going to lie. It's a good comeback. Shawn was also a little irritated with how he thought Sergeant Slaughter was stealing his spotlight, and then sure enough, Slaughter came out. Slaughter and Michaels ended up nose to nose here, Slaughter spraying spit all over Shawn, so the commissioner could make the point that he acts for the good of the WWF as a whole, not just Shawn Michaels. Shawn said that he's got an insurance policy for his match against Mankind. Nobody needs to worry about him, and the interview ends with Shawn's music and some hip gyrations. After that, we had some video footage of some of the Biloxi fans out there outside the arena earlier in the day opining on the state of things, and the very bad news that we were going to get a country whipping match next between Road Warrior Hawk and Henry O. Godwin. We did get footage of Hawk training for that match, which I thought was hilarious. It was just Hawk whipping a barrel with a strap and yelling, "Squeal Piggy." Owen Hart and the British Bulldog came out. I guess they were there to watch that next match. But before we get to that, let's pause here. Let's talk about the Heartbreak Kid opening this show. Joe, this was a very DX Shawn in the way he was talking, and especially just how he's been behaving lately. What'd you think about it and this tease about his insurance policy?
Yeah, certainly very DX-like for sure. He's a heel, but he's still giving high fives to fans and stuff. So I think he's still kind of feeling out that heel turn a little bit. It's going to be a different type of heel. We're going to find out. But yeah, I thought that it was a pretty good start to the show. I really liked the interaction between Shawn and Sergeant Slaughter. I thought it was funny. Shawn gives that crotch chop and says that he has an insurance policy tonight against Mankind. So we are headed into the birth of something, and we're going to have to find out what that is later. You know, going back to this time period, we would have had no clue who this insurance policy is because it comes out of nowhere.
Mr. Hughes would have been who I'm thinking.
Yeah, but that's what made wrestling so great during this time period, is they could actually keep those things secret.
Yeah, I thought all around this segment worked pretty well. Shawn Michaels. I'm waiting for, he has the braided leather belt. I'm waiting for the braided leather loafers just to complete, just put it over the top one of these times. Hopefully he does that. He did a good job, calling out Mankind, bitching about SummerSlam and how he's taking heat for it, bitching about McMahon a little bit more. And then speaking of McMahon, Shawn Michaels makes a comment about how this isn't the first time he's had something in his lap, and they immediately cut to Vince McMahon smiling. So I thought that was great timing by the cameraman. Shawn and Slaughter, once Slaughter came out, they had a pretty good exchange. It was a good move. Shawn, he did the comical thing, wiping his face away from the, I'm sure, gallons of spit that was being sprayed at him by Sergeant Slaughter. So that was a good job. And then he promises that he has some insurance policy. Obviously any fan now is going to know what's happening. But yeah, back then we would have been clueless. Where's this going? And then as just a little further hint to it, he ends this for the second time. He does the suck it motion. So we saw that a couple weeks ago, and here we saw it again to end out this segment. So it's definitely a hint of where we're going.
Yeah, can't wait to get to that later on. But first, let's get through our first match of the night. Road Warrior Hawk with Animal defeats Henry O. Godwin with Phineas Godwin in a country whipping match in 3 minutes and 47 seconds. They had to have Henry explain what this match is. I took it to mean that they're just going to whip the shit out of each other until one can't take it anymore, and that one leaves the ring. And I have to admit that as skeptical as I was about the gimmick, it wasn't that bad at the start. This wasn't overly complicated. It was just these two whipping each other and beating each other and strangling each other. Nice and simple. And that was really the bulk of the match. Things got a little out of hand when the interference started, but that led to the finish where Phineas and Henry accidentally got knocked out of the ring, giving Hawk the victory. And that's it. I mean, just shy of 4 minutes. So again, I didn't mind this at all. I mean, if we are going to have a gimmick match, I'll take this type of thing over the type of matches that have like dozen bullet points of stipulations any day. None of them make sense hardly ever anyway. Joe, what'd you think of this?
I don't really have much on this, to be honest. I mean, it was a gimmick match out of nowhere that we didn't know was happening until right before it happened. And it was only 3 minutes. So yeah, just guys whipping each other with belts or straps or whatever you want to call it. And Bulldog and Owen on commentary, I guess it's just more set up for what they're going to do with the tag team titles. They're probably still trying to figure out what they're going to do with that because they still don't know Stone Cold Steve Austin's status right now. So yeah, seems like they're just kind of slowly building up to what they're going to do with these tag teams and the titles.
So Bartlett, I kind of agree with you. You know, it started out and they're going into all these rules about whatever the fuck a country whipping match is. And I was a little bit taken back, but you know, once it started, yeah, it was easy to follow. And it was just two guys whipping on each other, which kind of looked like sex toys. They were like these double straps, but the double strap, it worked because of it clapping together. Every time they hit each other, it sounded great. You know, you could hear the sound echo through the crowd. And I think it was probably pretty entertaining for the audience there to watch this match because these guys were lighting each other up. Even though commentary spent a good chunk of it with Owen and Bulldog arguing as to who was going to take on the Patriot first, as if anyone cares who's going to take the Patriot on. But the ending, a little bit convoluted and it was short, so this wasn't a pay-per-view level match by any means, but solid entertainment, and for once, the gimmick kind of worked here.
Yeah, I wasn't mad about the gimmick at all. If anything, the only thing that I might not have liked about this match is it kind of made the Godwins continue to look like bitches. I mean, not that they've got like a really upward trajectory going for them at all, but I hate to see wasted potential here, I guess. Well, there's certainly some potential not being wasted over in Brian Pillman's locker room. He gets his own locker room again, by the way. We were informed that he will indeed be wearing a dress. After that, we also got a mini commercial for a new set of WWF trading cards featuring The Undertaker, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, Ahmed Johnson, and Psycho Sid. You can get those in boxes of Stridex. That's like pulling a baseball card out of a Cracker Jack box. You get a prize for having acne, I guess. Back in the locker room, Sergeant Slaughter showed up to deliver Pillman's dress to him, and that was the end of this mid-match segment. It was a brief one, so let's keep it brief here. But Ryan, what'd you have on these cards and Slaughter showing up to enforce the rules?
The cards it definitely took me back to that time because that's the type of gift that you would get from a company from in the mid to late 90s. So definitely a take back with that. And Slaughter, I don't know. This dress thing is definitely going to get old quick, but I still love Slaughter.
Yeah. Yeah, the dress thing is just continues to be strange. And yeah, the trading cards are great. You can wipe your face completely dry and take all of the oil out of your skin completely with Stridex and get some cool cards to go with it. What a partnership. WWF and Stridex, man. They are just going strong here in the 90s.
Well, I think what we're glossing over with that is Stridex probably had a deal with the WWF to take those used Stridex pads, wring the oil out of them, and then coat Ahmed Johnson with the recycled oil there, because the man goes through quite a bit.
It'd have to be recycling, or I wouldn't want that bill.
All right. Well, I would love to talk about the oiliness of Ahmed Johnson, or Stridex pads for that matter, but we're going to go into our next match. Scott Putski defeats Tony Williams by pinfall in 3 minutes and 33 seconds. Both of these guys got the jobber treatment. Zero entrance or announcement. And that
or focus.
They were focused on the tiny screen. They got the small, tiny screen.
Gold Daddy and Mommy Lena. They came out before the first tie-up, and they took up the 90% of our screen that was the big side of the split screen.
Imagine watching it on a 13-inch TV back in the day.
With blurry cable.
Yeah.
That little postage stamp down at the bottom.
I was just thinking it would probably be like an inch square window in the bottom right-hand corner.
All of those poor Scott Putski fans.
Yep.
Or the Tony Williams fans, for God's sakes.
JR called Gold Daddy and Mommy Lena the WWF's answer to the Cleavers. And that summed up the problem nicely, JR. Thank you.
Yeah.
You couldn't hear Tony Williams hitting the mat at all. He had to have been a featherweight, or the rings are just dialed in for bigger guys.
Lightweight.
Well, he wasn't light enough to get out of Scott Putski almost breaking his neck with a really botched suplex. And here is where I finally had to note that rather than watch the match, we were going to go to split screen, where Gold Daddy gave us a camera view of Pillman's locker room. We got to see black and white aerial footage of Pillman unhappy with the dress. I thought it was funny when Pillman got to the point of trying to tear the dress apart with his teeth. So that was pretty entertaining. Vince apologized to Putski for not paying attention to the match at all once the finish to the match came. And the commissioner, he came out to talk to Gold Daddy. I guess they had to leave for some reason at that point. And that was it. Ryan, it feels like we just witnessed two men getting jobbed out at the same time. What'd you think of this?
It did kind of feel like that. Gold Daddy and Mamalina came out, and that was it. I mean, that was what this entire match was about. Scott and Tony Williams get started, but we immediately go to a Shattered Dreams production of Pillman fretting over having to wear this dress in the locker room, and that's where we stay for all of it. And, like we said, it wasn't a normal split screen. The match was a tiny little screen at the bottom right, and the Shattered Dreams production video was 90% of the rest of the screen. So definitely not caring about this match and giving both the jobber treatment. And speaking of, I was thinking about doing Tony Williams as a jobber, but he really doesn't have much. The only real thing of note that I found about him was before his little stint in the WWF that he has right now, he was predominantly Brian Christopher's tag team partner. So they did have some tag team belts together and some, indie promotions, but that's it. That's really the only thing that he had going for him. And then he got his neck almost broken by Putski to finish things out. And then it was over. So no one cared about this match, including WWF, us, Vince McMahon. And that's it. It was over.
Well, I'll tell you who did care, and that's Dave Hebner. They had his camera being put to use here in the locker room. But yeah, I mean, nobody cared about the match, obviously. We are still getting more of this mom and dad versus Brian Pillman stuff that's going on. I mean, the dress stuff is not very funny. It's kind of outdated even for 1997, I think. But I don't know, maybe they're going to go somewhere else with this. So we'll see what happens eventually. But the dress stuff is already getting old. And yeah, Scott Putski does not quite have the suplexing skills of like a Brock Lesnar or Eddie Guerrero. Let's put it that way.
You would think a man as jacked up as Scott Putski is,
yeah, right,
would at least be able to get up a man as small and slight as Tony Williams is.
One thing that I just briefly thought to myself, when he was at that tiny little postage stamp down at the bottom, was he kind of reminds me of the Warrior in his physique. I mean, the dude is ripped.
Yeah, Putski, yeah.
Yeah, but just like the Warrior, not much of a wrestler.
Yeah. It's surprising as hell to me that Tony Williams was a tag team champion with Brian Christopher. This performance, I mean, I might have missed something in the very, very small window that it was appearing in, but this was not a championship performance at all.
I didn't say at any major promotion.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably Memphis, right?
Well, a lot of it was with the, what was it, USWA or whatever?
Yeah, the Nepotism Championship.
Yeah.
All right, well, moving along here, we got a brief message from The Undertaker, who had a message in turn for Shawn Michaels. Shawn's going to get buried at Ground Zero. Don't forget they have a match there. We broke to commercial on footage of Pillman exiting his locker room and came back to Flash Funk getting the jobber treatment. But before we even get to that, we had to job him out some more by showing a video package of Gold Daddy being sentimental about his insecurities surrounding his father. By God, Dusty Rhodes. I fucking hated every second of that. But just briefly before we move on, Joe, did you have anything on this continued focus on Dusty Rhodes? Wasn't Dusty still booking over at WCW at this point?
He was. I don't know if he was booking, but he was definitely on commentary there for sure during this time. So yeah, I mean they erased Hulk Hogan's championships, but they're talking about Dusty Rhodes. That doesn't make sense, right? But yeah, Undertaker talking about Shawn Michaels here. It's okay. We know that Shawn's real beef is with Bret Hart, but we're going to get this little feud with The Undertaker, and that's okay. That's probably going to be some good stuff.
Yeah, the main part I have to talk about is that I really liked that The Undertaker, is staying true to his word. He is kind of back to the old version of himself here. Man, a few words. He just talks about burying Shawn Michaels and that he's going to rest in peace. Done, that perfect.
Yep. Absolutely. The man has been speaking too much, he said, and I'm glad to see he's rectifying that. All right, let's keep it going to our next match. Flash Funk defeats Brian Pillman by pinfall in 3 minutes and 17 seconds.
First victory he's had in a year and a half.
Yeah. Keep in mind, everybody, that Pillman has to win a match on Raw in order to stop wearing the dress. So, I loved Vince saying that was quite an attractive gown Pillman was wearing. Made me think back to that kid last week that was popping his ass off over Pillman getting forced to wear the gown. And we went to split screen with the commissioner. He made a match later on tonight. The Patriot and a mystery partner will be taking on Owen Hart and the British Bulldog. That's to settle that argument that Ryan mentioned earlier during the first match. Thankfully, in the ring, Pillman wasn't wearing a thong this time. He was wearing just regular wrestling tights underneath. Gold Daddy and Marlena came out, though. Staying up at the top of the entryway, they directed Pillman's attention to the Titantron and the replay of that video of Pillman in the dressing room from the Dave Hebner camera. That distraction is what gave Flash Funk the chance to roll Pillman up for the victory. So guys, I have to admit, I'm getting more interested in this. I'm getting curious now about what Gold Daddy might come up with next in order to keep Pillman in the dress. And I also have to add that even though this was a short match, Brian Pillman looked a lot better in the ring here than he has in his last few outings. So Joe, please, what do you think of this match?
Yeah, the dress angle does not really interest me at all, but it's still two oddballs in a feud here, Goldust and Brian Pillman. So it's going to be entertaining. The only thing that's really kind of shitty here is that they have Pillman losing to all of these cartoon jobbers, Flash Funk this week and Bob Holly last week. So that kind of sucks, but again, we're kind of doing comedy stuff, I guess. So it's okay. Again, I'm looking forward to where this is going next because I'm kind of already over the dress thing.
Yeah, Joe, speaking about, where things may be going next, we may at least got a small hint of it right at the beginning when Pillman's walking down to the ring. JR says that he knows Pillman personally, and this dress business could very well push him over the edge. Mm-hmm. He's a man's man, he's a football star, but there's only so much he could take, and he doesn't know what Pillman will do next. So they're planting a seed that this is going somewhere, so that's good. Then we also, speaking of commentary, get word that Jerry the King Lawler is going to be on ECW's pay-per-view this upcoming Sunday. So that's kind of interesting. I actually, might this week go back and maybe watch that pay-per-view just to kind of see what he did there, what it was all about.
Yeah.
The match itself was similar to last week and the match we just had in that we go to split screen. But thankfully for Funk and Pillman, they got the bigger screen, unlike Putski got, they got the little tiny screen down on the bottom, but Slaughter was down in the little screen on this one. So they lucked out there. The stuff with Goldust, it was predictable. It was just kind of waiting. When was Goldust going to come out and cause him to lose this match again? The match wasn't bad, the action, but I did kind of think that the ending was. Pillman, after he gets distracted, turns around and basically runs into the arms of Flash and rolls himself up for this loss. So that was a little bit weird and just odd looking. But other than that, probably one of the better segments we've had involving this dress bullshit.
Yeah, I'm going to agree. And I really think that I'm coming around on the whole dress thing, not because of the dress.
Just
dress
the story.
It's just a vehicle.
Yeah, the all-around story is picking up some steam.
Yeah, and good call with JR mentioning that stuff about Pillman at the beginning, because I missed that. That's a pretty solid plot point there, so I'm glad JR was giving it to us, even though I missed it. I personally was getting way too excited for what was coming up next. because I guess Dude Love had a lot to say. That's going to be in the next segment. The Biloxi crowd, they were well into the summer of love here. They had a Dude Love fan section outside. After that, we got some slow-mo graphic-ass footage of Austin getting his freaking neck broken again, complete with Owen Hart calling Austin a crippled freak. Basically a refresher of the whole Austin situation that got neatly tied to how Dude Love got brought into the mix as a result of that. Back in the arena, cue that backbeat. It's his dudeness there for an interview with Vince McMahon. Those groupies were there again, and I am definitely sure that the taller blonde one was Mick's wife, Colette. We talked about that last week, and I think I got some confirmation there.
She's a former model, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure she was a model when they met. Dude cut a promo on behalf of Stone Cold. Vince was enjoying it, and not in the perverted way he enjoys Shawn Michaels promos, but in the little kid laughing at the funny stuff way. This was genuinely, honestly entertaining. Nothing about the delivery here was serious at all. Even though Dude Love was giving us updates, he was setting things up for us, the whole thing felt like a big joke. But I mean that in a good way, because the smile didn't leave my face the whole time, much like Vince McMahon, especially when Dude Love was talking about Mankind as some other person. I thought that was just great. But then Shawn Michaels got up on the Titantron. He cut a promo on Dude Love and the whole confusing situation between Dude Love and Mankind and all that. Shawn wanted to remind everybody about that insurance policy that he'll have in their match later on. Dude Love quoted the Beatles to finish things up, and the groupies rushed the ring to bump and grind on Dude Love as we ended the first hour of Raw. I love this. I can't think of any better way to put it. So it just so happens also that my wife, who is not a wrestling fan, was in the room at the time, and she loved it too, because what's not to love about Dude Love? Ryan, what did you think about this interview and Shawn's reaction to it?
Well, before the interview, I'm actually going to start with the Austin recap injury video thing that they showed, only because it's showing that I guess this week they must have learned a little bit more about Stone Cold's injury, because we learned that he is home resting up like we assumed he would have been last week. He is doing that this week. And we got to see that 2-bit Holiday Inn Express doctor again, so I was glad to see him in that video. We got to the Dude Love interview, and Bartlett, like you, it's just Mick Foley is kind of impossible to not like. And it shows here in him talking on this mic. Joe, you've said for weeks, everything he does as Dude Love is ridiculous, but for some reason it's fucking fantastic and it works. And that's kind of what this entire segment was, just one thing after another that I have to feel if it was another wrestler delivering it in there, it would have fell flat on its face, but Mick makes it work and makes it funny. So, hell of a job. I love Dude Love. Somewhere I love here as well.
Yeah. I mean, at first I thought when he was going to come out and do an interview, I thought, I'm not sure I love the dude doing interviews. It might ruin the mysterious aspect of Dude Love, but I was completely wrong. I mean, it is like you said, Bartlett, it's a joke, but in a good way, and really because it's Mick Foley. I mean, just the talent, the delivery, just everything that he possesses, it makes this work, and it wouldn't work for anybody else. He's really pulling off this Faces of Foley gimmick that he has going just very well. And this was fun to watch.
Yeah, 100% agreed there. And it's, I don't know. Going into Dude Love, what was that, about a month ago now at this point, I was a little uncertain as to how I was going to receive it, because, I was a little worried that it was maybe one of those things that teenage me would like more than adult me does. But I'm very happy to say I was wrong about that, because this hasn't let us down yet. Well, I mean, letting down, these segues, they write themselves. At the start of Raw is War in the second hour, Vince called Monday Night Raw the personification of freedom of expression. That in and of itself was a teensy bit of a letdown, because it took us into our next match. Ken Shamrock Okay. And the Patriot, not okay, defeats the Hart Foundation, Owen Hart and the British Bulldog, by pinfall in 11 minutes and 17 seconds. My wife, Anita, took one look at the Patriot and said, I don't remember that guy at all.
Neither does anyone else.
I was a little surprised at that because both of my brothers-in-law, huge wrestling fans, watching wrestling at this time back then. So I was kind of thinking that like maybe she would have seen him, but no, not at all.
Well, I mean, we saw him and barely remembered him. So
yeah.
Yep, quite forgettable.
Yeah. Shamrock must have taken some advice from Ahmed Johnson on baby oil application because Kenny was glistening. Owen and Kenny started it out, and I was interested to see that. And I wasn't really disappointed either. Those two were working quickly together, and it looked great. Owen was really able to help accentuate what Ken is able to do here. But good things never last forever in the WWF, as the Patriot got tagged in and things went to shit. Bret Hart came out to the top of the entryway to watch. JR said that he has a Jim Jones-like influence on the Hart Foundation, and I thought that was a little bit of a stretch. I know I've said it before, but I love how Ken Shamrock sells. He's just fucking great at it. There's something about the way that his face gets a little puffed up. His hair gets messed up. He gets like the Jimmy legs whenever he's walking around, and I love Ken Shamrock selling. The Patriot almost broke the Bulldog's arm with a botched body slam in there. The commissioner came out to get Bret Hart out of there. Shamrock and Owen ended up outside. And of course, a chair ended up in the ring for the Patriot to hit the Bulldog with. He gave him the Patriot Act onto the chair, I do believe. And that's where Vince gave us the great line that the Patriot will do whatever it takes to win, just like everybody else. As if that's some kind of moral fucking high ground. Of course, it's one that Vince McMahon would take. But
that's what we want out of our heroes, acting like everyone else.
Yep, exactly. So this match killed 11 minutes. It was good to see Shamrock and Owen, but there wasn't much else there for me to enjoy. Ryan, what'd you have on this match?
Oh, I mean, when we were focusing on the Patriot, I must have dozed off because I did not realize this was an 11-minute match. Pretty hard to believe, really. Everyone else involved in this match other than the Patriot is pretty good. I mean, they're big names here. Owen Hart, Bulldog, Shamrock, and I don't think they disappointed in the ring. But when we get the Patriot, when we introduce him, things go downhill. Even from right at the beginning, just like last week, we upped the ante from last week, and we have a 3-way flag off this week. We got the British flag, Canadian flag, and the U.S. flag waving at each other. Riveting shit. And there's not much else to talk about. The match happened. Nothing real spectacular happened. Bret Hart acted like he was going to get involved until Slaughter stopped it. And then our babyface American hero cheats again, just like last week. This time he uses a chair and kicks it out of the way so the ref doesn't see it. Last week he attacked someone from behind. Hell of a way to make this guy a golden boy baby face, right?
Going back a couple matches here, they told us that that the Patriot was going to be having a match tonight with a mystery partner. I mean, normally I am a fan of the mystery partner gimmick because I think it works well when you're introducing somebody new or somebody is coming back from a long injury, but it's fucking Ken Shamrock. So it just wasn't that exciting to me.
And it was very predictable too. Like the moment the Patriot said that he was going to have an unknown person, I was like, oh, you mean it's probably going to be Ken Shamrock, right?
Well, yeah, because it's against the Bulldog.
Right,
and they've been
exactly.
Having these
and they've been already kind of loosely teaming up, and yeah, it only made sense.
Yeah, and they tried to build up like a hot tag too with Ken Shamrock getting his hands on the Bulldog, but like they already had a match.
Yeah.
So Yeah, I
and
don't
he
know.
completely snapped on him.
Yeah, the whole mystery partner angle here was a total swing and a miss, and the fact that it's the Patriot just makes it worse. Jim Ross reminds us by saying, "This is a man who could be the next WWF champion," and that made me throw up a little bit. And just when I finished wiping my mouth, I see the dreaded double clothesline, which is only going to prolong another Patriot match. You know, it's horrible they have the Patriot out here beating all these top guys right now, but they have a guy like Pillman doing bad comedy and losing to jobbers. I mean, this guy, the Patriot is not in Bret Hart's league at all. And it's obvious. So it's really bad.
They're trying to make us believe that he is, but everyone knows he's not.
Yes.
You know, whenever I was outside mowing the grass earlier today, I was bothered by a string of cars going past. I guess Google Maps is redirecting Canadian tourists to the outlets through the country back roads here. There's an outlet mall in western Pennsylvania that I live very close to. And it got me thinking, I wonder what would happen if I put on a red, white, and blue themed Lucha Libre mask and went and walked around the outlets with all of these Canadians there. I wonder if I would get hated just as much as the Patriot does here.
Maybe. Give it a shot. Film it. Put it out on YouTube.
I wonder where I could find one of those masks.
Oh, that would be easy.
In a dumpster, probably, but...
I'm sure you could find one. I have a Steelers lucha mask.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Chew got it for me when he was down visiting Mexico. They were down there, and he brought it back for me.
Huh. Okay. Well, maybe I can find one if I call 1-900-SHAMELESS. Maybe they might have a line on that.
What's that in Monopoly money?
You can also get a line on why Ahmed Johnson got kicked out of the Nation of Domination there. 1-900-SHAMELESS. And also some info about Stone Cold Steve Austin's health. That's option 3, just in case you're wondering. After that, we got a video of the Hitman being the hero that he is in Canada. Lauded, I say, as a hero up north. We've got a very babyface promo from Bret in this video, followed by some footage of fans loving on Bret, cheering for him. One of those fans was Jason Sensation. Did you guys see him there?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, the guy with a little bit of a teensy bit of a gap between the front teeth and the curly, dark, almost black hair. That was Jason Sensation, which we'll definitely get more of him in the future. Bret, on the screen there, made a great point that it is not the U.S. Wrestling Federation, it is the World Wrestling Federation, and he will represent the world. So I did like that. We got a backstage view of Shawn Michaels standing there with his insurance policy. We couldn't see who it was, but it was a man with a short haircut and wearing a suit. And the angle was just right on this. I could not tell who that was. So keeping that mystery alive. I wish we could stay talking about that because next up, the Patriot was waiting to give us a promo. He was literally trying to justify his existence when Bret Hart showed up to punch him in the gut. And I've never loved Bret Hart more. It was just such a great scene because the Patriot, he's still out of breath and fucking winded from the match. And he's just trying to explain to us why he matters, why he deserves anything. And the only thing that he really deserves is a punch in the fucking gut from Bret Hart. Officials showed up to pull them apart, and that is what ended this segment. Joe, what'd you think of this very babyface video package showing a very different kind of Bret Hart up in Canada?
Yeah, it's kind of similar to that one they had on The Undertaker a couple weeks ago, but not quite. So that was a little odd there to see that kind of video for Bret Hart, who is a heel. But again, they're playing that whole Canada fans versus US fans angle, so it works. And great job of filming, I guess, the production of this insurance policy. You know, this is the type of stuff that is good to have during a Monday Night War. You don't want people to change the channel. You need to have stuff like this that's going to keep people tuned in. So that was really nice. And then they might want to change the channel when the Patriot is going to cut a promo, but then Bret Hart saves us all. Bret Hart to the rescue. Cut it off and beat the living shit out of the Patriot. So If Bret Hart does not win clean at Ground Zero, I am giving that entire event a dud.
The video itself, it was kind of reminiscent of that Undertaker video. Not quite as much breaking of kayfabe as that one was, but, getting close to that. And then after it, we talked to some of these Canadian fans, and, they love him. We have like a 7-year-old kid gloating about Bret Hart winning and how great Canada is, but he keeps flubbing over his words and can't properly explain himself, so I can't take him very seriously. Then we get to the Patriot promo, and I let out a loud groan when he started his promo, but then that turned into a smile when Bret Hart attacked him and shut him the fuck up. That was a great way to end a worthless promo.
All right, let's get to something that I've been very much looking forward to talking to you guys about. Our next match. Farouk defeats Chainz by pinfall in 3 minutes and 2 seconds. First off, we got the news that Ahmed Johnson has an injured knee and won't be back soon. So there's that. And in the match, things were just kind of there. Farouk didn't look bad, but then the ref took a bump, and some kid, I think it might have been the son of Hall of Famer Rocky Johnson, I'm not sure, slid into the ring to check on the referee.
Did he have a fanny pack on?
He did have a fanny pack on, and he was wearing
he's a blue chipper.
He was wearing a striped polo shirt, but the stripes were like a dark, like a burgundy color, and like my screen resolution or whatever. Like I kind of thought he was wearing a ref's jersey at first, but he wasn't. That kid ended up hitting Chainz with a rock bottom, giving Farouk the cover just as the ref was regaining consciousness. And the garbage there rained into the ring as Rocky Maivia raised his fist alongside Farouk. After a commercial break, we came back to the Nation of Domination locker room. Present are Farouk, Rocky, D'Lo, and Kama, the core of the Nation of Domination that I always loved the most. Unfortunately, the DOA showed up angry about what happened. JR said there's going to be a war between these two factions, and I lost whatever smile I had during that segment. So, guys, there are so many pieces falling into place in this episode. Joe, what did you think of this match and Rocky Maivia joining the Nation of Domination?
Well, I mean, let's just not even talk about the match. Rocky interrupts the match. He's wearing what you described as well as the pleated shorts and loafers look that Shawn Michaels always has.
It's very popular look.
Yeah.
Yeah. JR refers to him as... Now, remember... Okay, we're talking about what he's wearing. Remember all the bullshit he was wearing as Rocky Maivia when we last saw him. He's wearing that ridiculous ring gear. He did kind of clean it up a little bit, but now he looks like somebody important to me. Like he looks like a heel, and he fits in so well with this group of non-cartoon heels.
Yeah.
The Nation of Domination. So this is just beautiful. There's no playing around, there's no build up. He comes in, he interrupts, he immediately joins the Nation, and we are off and running here. So that is really good stuff. And JR actually referred to him as The Rock. Didn't really put emphasis on it, but he did mention it. So I thought that was cool too.
I will first start, unfortunately, just briefly talking about Chainz here.
Oh, no.
So someone needs to pull him aside and tell him you're not the fake Undertaker anymore.
I was thinking that too. Oh my God.
That's all he did. He basically ripped off the entire Undertaker moveset here during this match.
The big boot.
He does the big boot. There's a point where he gets knocked down and he gets up and does the hair flick thing back to throw his long hair back. Dude, you're not the Undertaker. Give it the fuck up. That's all I'm going to talk about in the match was fake Undertaker thinking he's still the fake Undertaker. But thankfully, none of that matters because here he is. We get The Rock, and he looks like The Rock now. You described that shirt he has on, but it reminded me of the ridiculous shirts that The Rock would wear, especially when he was still kind of halfway a bad guy, but starting to become a good guy. He'd come out in all these silk, $500 $100 shirts and shit. And that's kind of what this reminds me. Yeah. Just fantastic stuff. And then I love that the shoulder breaker is gone. The rock bottom is here as his finisher. And that's how he ends this to give Farouk the victory. So yeah, a lot of pieces falling into place in this episode. It's definitely an important one here.
Well, let's keep that moving. One good turn deserves another, because Sable's music played next. Wow. And Sable came out too. It's no hint of Mark Marrow anywhere in the Titantron video, so I guess they've finally just given in to the inevitable and made it all about Sable. She's going to be the guest ring announcer for the main event. Lawler and JR started making funny comments about her. Lawler said something about Sable having grown since she's been in the WWF. JR replies to that, saying that Sable's profile is as pronounced as Sergeant Slaughter's is.
That's a hell of a way to put it, JR.
Then the fucking Patriot came out and got on the mic, whining about Brett jumping him from behind, because isn't that what the Patriot did earlier with the chair? Never mind. The Patriot wants to give away a championship match for free here on Raw tonight, and he calls out Bret Hart. Bret came on down, and these two started going at it with no officials, just a man-on-man fight in the ring, no titles on the line. The Hart Foundation, Sans Anvil, came out because, and I hate to say it, the Patriot was kind of bitching out Bret Hart there in the ring. That turned things around to the point where Bret was strangling the Patriot with the Canadian flag, and that was a good visual, at least. Officials came out, and that whole thing got broken up. Mankind was backstage after that to cut a promo about his match, causing Vince to retch with an, oh my goodness. And that was followed by Brackus! Brackus was on our screens again. I come from Deutschland. This time he definitely said Vader.
Okay, yeah, I was going to ask who did he call out on that one.
So glad that he's setting up for a feud with Vader. That'll be absolutely fantastic.
Match of the year material right there. And that was it. So it looks like we're going to be getting more Sable now. Sable's got her own thing lined up. Marrow isn't going to be far behind with that, but for now, another significant piece of the puzzle falls into place. Ryan, please, what you have on this segment?
Well, Sable comes down to the ring, and I really enjoyed the King correctly pointing out that since her and Mark Marrow have come to the WWF, Sable has eclipsed Mark in popularity with the fans. No doubt about that, the King. No doubt about that. And then the Patriot again. How many times are we going to see him tonight? He comes down, he calls out Bret Hart. Bret Hart comes down, they start fighting each other, and then, as anyone with two brain cells to rub together would expect, the rest of the Hart Foundation comes down and outnumbers the Patriot and beats him into the ground. So not only is the Patriot a cheater, he's also not very bright.
Makes you proud to be an American.
Yeah,
right?
Really giving us Americans a good name.
Yeah, I want more Sable, more, because I don't want the Patriot coming out here interrupting her entrance. So why is he mad? He won his match.
Oh, he got jumped.
Yeah. He challenges Bret. The Patriot has no business being out here. Nobody said that. Like you mentioned, Bartlett, he kind of starts to get the best of Bret and then finally gets jumped. Thank goodness. I don't know. I mean, I do not want more Patriot after just seeing him in an 11-minute match. That's 11 minutes too long, and then we get more of him. So, yeah, it's not good.
I just think it's funny that the Patriot, as a kind of a symbol of America, is a shit-kicking redneck, belligerently aggressive hypocrite.
Well,
yeah.
I mean,
isn't that the damnedest thing?
Yeah, it's if the shoe fits.
Yeah.
More Sable, less Patriot, please.
Yeah. Like, is this some kind of a deal that Bret made with Vince, where Vince was like, I'm going to make you look right no matter what you do? All right. Well, let's keep it going now to our main event. Shawn Michaels defeats Mankind by pinfall in 11 minutes. JR said that this was Shawn's first match since June, and I had kind of forgotten that with Shawn's, trick knee being such a constant issue for him. I kind of lost track of just when the last time he graced the mat was. Mankind came out with a trash can that the world's worst referee, Earl Hebner, just decided to leave in the ring and do nothing about. Shawn picked it up, hit Mankind with it, which should have been an immediate disqualification if Hebner had any credibility. But Hebner wouldn't call the foreign object, but he was definitely up there doing the damn 10 count and resetting it repeatedly like the useless piece of shit he is whenever Shawn Michaels and Mankind decided to spend some time outside by the commentary table. They finally got back in the ring for Mankind to dodge the sweet chin music, put the mandible claw on, and end up back outside again. So I'm glossing over it, but this was actually a hell of a brutal match for a Monday night. There was a lot of activity outside of the ring. There was a lot of bumping and hitting into furniture, a few slams on the announce table that was definitely not gimmicked. And just as we were getting ready to break for commercial, Hunter Hearst Helmsley and Chyna started walking down to the ring. JR reminds us that they do have a beef with Dude Love or Mankind or whoever. So at that point, even though I knew what was going on, I thought it was clever to see that they were able to keep it up in the air like that, plausible deniability or reasonable doubt, whatever you want to say. When we came back, Shawn was beating Mankind with his mask, which I thought was pretty damn cool. Vince dropped the line that Mankind holds more victories over The Undertaker than any other superstar in WWF history. Is that right?
Yeah, I remember hearing that stat before.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, later on, but at this point, Mankind has barely been in for a year, hasn't he?
Yeah, but I think he's got like 3 victories over The Undertaker, which, when you think about it, how many other people beat The Undertaker 3 times at this point?
Didn't Mabel smear him like 6 times?
That was once.
It seemed like
it did,
yeah.
Because it was such an important match on a pay-per-view, but it was just once.
Well, I loved it when Mankind got the upper hand and started beating Shawn's head off the mat. That was just another cool visual. But then the insurance policy showed up, ravishing Rick Rude, coming down the ramp in that suit, just as Mankind was hitting Michaels with his double-arm DDT. So if you're not out there keeping score, here in the ring area, we had Shawn Michaels, Hunter Hearst Helmsley, Chyna, and Rick Rude. Hunter tripped up Mankind, Chyna distracted the ref, Rude nailed Mankind with a chair, and that set up the sweet chin music from Shawn to get the pin and the 3 counts over Mankind. Shawn was stumbling around there in the ring. He kind of was affecting as though he wasn't too sure of the people around him and he didn't quite know what was going on. But that wasn't the end of things as the bell tolled and the Undertaker came out. And then that wasn't the end of things as Paul Bearer appeared on the Titantron saying that Kane was coming and the Undertaker would burn in hell as the arena turned red and lit up with bright red pyro before we faded to black. So guys, not only was this, I thought, a great match in and of itself, like I said, brutal for a Monday night, and honestly kind of surprising. It brought together some pieces that we've been waiting for. This is the origins of D-Generation X, and not just that, but on top of it, we got some hellfire and brimstone to round it all out. Ryan, please, what did you think of this match and the way that Raw ended tonight?
So, let's talk about the last time Shawn Michaels and Mick Foley met up. It was, if not match of the year, it was a match of the year candidate for us. This had some big shoes to fill, and, it wasn't a pay-per-view match, so maybe it didn't get quite to those heights, but man, it was a pretty damn good match. These 2 guys just really beating on each other. Like you said, very brutal for a Raw match, especially at this time. We're not quite there yet in the Attitude Era. And one of my favorite spots was when Shawn went for the sweet chin music and Mankind ducked and reversed it with a mandible claw. And then they end up getting to the outside, and then to break it up, Shawn beats Mankind's head against the ring pole like 3 times, and man, did it look brutal. Excellent match. And then we get what happens here at the end. The formation, they're not calling it yet, but we're getting the formation of DX here. And then to top it off, we get actual flame, the fire from Chainz. So whole bunch of shit that is really important, is going to set the tone for the next decade to come in the WWF. And, Bartlett, like you said, a hell of a match to top it off. All this great storytelling, but they snuck in a good match as well. So really, really great shit here. Nothing here didn't work, to be honest with you, in my opinion.
Yeah, this match was awesome. I mean, if you don't think about Earl Hebner or the fact that commentary, I guess, didn't really help either. I mean, this seemed like a no DQ match, but I don't think it was. But, if you don't think about that, this was just great work from these two. It's unfortunate we didn't get more matches between these two, but, we can enjoy what we got here. And one of my favorite things about this was very similar to their previous match, was the way that they broke out of the mandible claw. Again, they come up with some of the most creative shit. I don't know who it was, maybe both of these guys, but they escaped the ring. Like, Shawn jumped over the ropes, pulling Mankind with him, and then they were doing some shit on the table to break that hold. So it's basically Shawn Michaels just selling that move even more, because he's got to do some crazy shit to get out of that hold. I'm not the biggest fan of the mandible claw, but I love seeing guys that come up with creative ways of selling it, even better. So that was really fun to watch. And then, we're getting Rick Rude, we're getting China, Triple H. So things are coming together. It's really interesting how things work out for creative when there's a problem. There's actually a couple problems. You got Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels not wanting to work together, and you have your biggest star on the shelf right now, Steve Austin. So really amazing how creative, could look back at this and just be really proud of the fact that, we made shit work really well, even with those two things happening.
Yeah, completely agreed. It's just so many good things coming together in this. And let's move it to the end here, because I'm looking forward to talking about these. As I said, we faded to black, so let's take it to highlights and lowlights. Ryan, please, why don't you take that first?
Well, my highlight, I have to go with this final match, and really the whole final segment. The match itself was phenomenal. And then all of the building blocks here that we get of DX, we get Ravishing Rick Rude introduced here, just everything firing on all cylinders at the end here. So I felt that was an easy highlight. The low light is just the Patriot. I mean, he was all the fuck over our screens tonight, showing up in every segment. I couldn't take it. He was the low light.
I will just continue that. My low light is also the Patriot. Again, this guy is not in Bret Hart's league, but yet we're getting a feud between the two. Yeah, he sucks, but this episode of Monday Night Raw is a very important episode. I think I'm going to go with 2 highlights. Number 1 is Rocky Maivia joining the Nation. And 2 is this insurance policy. I love the play on words, too, because of Rick Rude's Lloyd's of London insurance policy. Yeah, basically the birth of DX, the unofficial birth of DX. Those 2 things are my highlight, because those are things that are going to shape the Attitude Era and WWF over the next, 4 or 5 years or so.
Yeah, so we're 3 for 3. Low lights, I had the amount of Patriot in this episode was way too much.
Patriot overload.
I mean, a non-zero amount is too much, but there was just way too much in this.
Ground zero, Patriot overload.
My highlight, though, so I thought that overall, I mean, this was a really good episode of Raw compared to some of the ones that we've had lately.
Even the gimmick match was strong.
Yes, yeah. But I kind of fell in with Joe in that I couldn't go with just one highlight. I had to go with 2, and that they both relate to the progress made in the episode. We've got Rocky joining the Nation. It's not going to be long before we start getting some heel Rocky promos, which are going to be great. And the unofficial start of DX. bonus, Hellfire and Brimstone. All of these things, very welcome aspects to the whole scene here on Monday Night Raw. So super excited that we got to this point, and honestly a little surprised. I didn't think that we got to DX this soon. I thought it was going to be another month or two. Definitely before Survivor Series, but all right. Well, Joseph, do you have any contemporary wrestling news from on and around August 11th, 1997 for us?
I do. A couple of injury updates here from Dave Meltzer. Steve Austin went in for an MRI on August 8th and was told by a leading neck specialist that he should retire. However, Austin is going to get a second opinion from a doctor in Philadelphia who also has a reputation of being the leading neck specialist in the United States. So he is going to get a second opinion, and we will wait and hear what that report is.
I don't know why he wouldn't trust that bum from the motel room.
Well, yeah, so I guess it's a third opinion then. Another injury that was mentioned earlier today in our show is Ahmed Johnson. He re-injured his knee.
So it was a re-injury.
Yeah.
I was wondering when Bartlett was talking about that if it was maybe they decided to kick him out of the nation because the knee was taking longer than they expected, but interesting. It was a re-injure.
Yeah. Word is that he will be out about 4 to 8 weeks now, rehabbing that knee. Some good news for Jim Ross. He has been elevated to Senior VP at Titan Sports, and he is the highest ranking official in the company not named McMahon right now.
Wow.
He is in charge of things like contract negotiations, talent recruiting, along with playing a major role in booking. So Jim Ross must be taking on that, what was it, director of talent relations, I think was the title.
JR's moving up in the world.
Yeah. And we saw Rick Rude tonight. He was brought in as part of the working agreement with Paul Heyman and ECW. Rude appeared on this show, and in exchange, Jim Ross plugged the upcoming ECW pay-per-view on this episode of Raw. Rick Rude has been appearing with ECW since January of this year. The original deal was intended to be a one-time only thing with WWF, but it looks like Rude will be working as Shawn Michaels' bodyguard moving forward. So he will likely be sticking around and will also still work some ECW shows thanks to that working agreement with Paul Heyman. And that is all.
All right. Well, thank you, Joseph. Illuminating as always. And that is it, folks. We are done with this one. I want to thank you again for joining us. If you like what we're doing here and want to connect with us, you can email us at WRASSLINRAW. Just add @gmail.com to the end of that to submit questions or comments. Check us out on social media and on every podcast subscription platform. While you're there, don't forget to follow and subscribe to get every episode of Wrasslin Raw coming to you every week. Give us a 5-star review and tell all of your friends to tune in to the most monumental Monday Night Raw review podcast on the airwaves. Next week on Wrasslin Raw, we're going to take a look at the Raw that aired on August 18th, 1997, with matches featuring Jesse James, The Undertaker, and many more. So, for Joe and Ryan, I'm Jason, and this has been Wrasslin Raw.